firstly, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming along to this open meeting. I'd like to welcome two colleagues in particular, Gemma Dale and Jane Crosby, who are going to lead some breakout sessions for us this afternoon on different aspects of wellbeing. What we've decided to do, and we asked quite a lot of you, and thank you to everybody that fed back to us about what you thought was really helpful about these meetings, and what you thought we could do to hopefully make them more useful for you. And essentially what that feedback said was it's helpful to have the overview of what's going on and some key issues of what's happening, but it would also be nice to do something a little less kind of show and tell. And I think, you know, clearly there's been a lot of feedback and conversations about kind of well-being and the challenges of working the way that we are for a protracted period of time, which is obviously different for different people. So we thought it would be helpful to do something that was a bit more kind of interactive and fun in the run up to Christmas. It doesn't mean to say that you can't have fun anytime other than the run up to Christmas, clearly, but we thought it would be useful to do, and it'd be really handy to get your feedback on this, and so we can think about things for the future as well. So we're just going to do a couple of kind of brief updates on some key issues, and then I'm kind of fingers crossed that the technology is going to work. We've got two breakout rooms that Jane and Gemma are going to lead, and you can choose which one you do. And I've never had this happen before, where you can choose your own breakout room, so I'm slightly nervous about that, but I'm sure it'll all be fine. And if people can think about their own kind of personal top tips for well-being, that would be really great, and we'll try and pick up a couple of those at the end of the meeting. But before we get into that, there's just a couple of things that I'd like to update people on, and we'll start off with a quick update on the annual performance and planning review, which the faculty had with the senior leadership team a couple of weeks ago now. So I'm going to hand over to Rebecca Moss, our head of planning, governance and compliance, to give you the highlights. Rebecca.
Yes, thanks, Vicky. So every year the faculty go through an annual performance review where we look back at things that have been achieved over the previous year, have a review of data, and then also have a forward-looking focus on priorities for the coming year and beyond. Obviously, the situation we're in this year, things were a little bit different. So normally it's a very lengthy document, 120 pages. We managed to slim that down to about 25 pages this year. And there were deep dive reviews held for research, teaching and learning, and SR in advance. So what that enabled us to do is have a much more forward-looking conversation as part of the APR review this year. That doesn't mean we didn't reflect back on what's been achieved. It's obviously been a very difficult year, and there was definitely a significant amount of recognition and pride amongst the achievements that had been made over the previous year. Particularly around staff and students, helping out on the front line, the way we've responded in terms of our COVID response, rapid response group, and the way all the staff have adapted to working from home as well. As well as things such as the way we've all had to adapt to the changes in the way that we teach, and the adapting to the increase in student numbers as well. In light of all that, there was recognition that a lot of staff are fatigued and impacted in different ways as a result of the situation that we're in at the moment, and that's partly part of the reason for having the wellbeing aspects that are due to come up later as part of this. Obviously, the situation we're in is presenting a number of challenges around planning for the future in terms of the impact that COVID had on the medical charity funding, and some of the challenges that we're having at the moment around balancing research and teaching. But it is also presenting us with a number of opportunities as well. So it's giving us an opportunity to think differently about the way we work. We're all currently working from home. That isn't something we imagined would be happening 9 months ago. And the way we use our space as well. It's also presenting opportunities such that, that we've learned over the previous period. So, for example, the way we've worked with other faculties as part of the COVID response. It's opening up more doors and more opportunities, and something we need to look at further in terms of how we work with the other faculties. Also the rapid transition to OBL as well. We need to look back at what's worked well and what do we want to embed and look at moving forward. So that was just some of the highlights from the APR this year. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
No, thank you. I think it was a very positive meeting. It's always helpful when it's kind of positive and supportive. And I think SLT very clear that we're doing a lot of really great stuff in the faculty and very confident with what we're doing. So that was all very good. Just to say a couple of things. Thanks, Rebecca. About semester 2. Some of you will have seen, no doubt, that the Department for Education has put guidance out about what it expects to happen after Christmas when students are coming back. I mean, clearly, most of them have just gone, some of them haven't, and now we're trying to think about them coming back. But we've got very clear guidance that there should be a staggered return of students. Obviously, what the government's trying to avoid is what happened in September, October, when we had very large outbreaks of COVID amongst the student population. So we're obviously, and many of you were involved in this, starting to think through what that might look like in terms of when students can come back. Obviously, we've got assessments over the first few weeks after Christmas anyway. So we're starting to work through what that might look like for when students come back, particularly for the start of teaching at semester 2. Obviously, alongside that, we've got to think about testing, because we're being asked to test all students as they come back after Christmas. I think we'd hope that we wouldn't have to do that, but it's clear that the universities are being asked to undertake that testing work. And we also need to think about what tier we will be at once we come back into semester 2. Obviously, at the moment, Greater Manchester is at tier 3, so we are still doing the vast majority of things online and through a blended approach. If the tier level comes down in GM, we need to think about what that means for our approach to blended learning and face-to-face. So we're starting to work through that. I think we are essentially working to an assumption that we may well be at tier 2 after Christmas in terms of our semester 2 teaching, but obviously that's not clear. And as I think we all know and have learned over the last few months, things change on a daily, weekly, hourly basis. So we need to try and be prepared as far as we can. And I know everyone's working very hard on that. So thank you again for everything that people are doing around that. We are expecting to get some further communications out before Christmas around the whole kind of situation and where we expect to be after Christmas. So keep your eyes out for emails and information on StaffNet as we go through. I just wanted to mention a couple of things in addition in terms of senior appointments. Many of you will have seen that we have a couple of senior people who are going to be leaving us around Christmas. Alison Howarth and Graham Morrissey. I've got other ways that I can embarrass them, so I'm not going to do it too much here. Alison's now smiling, so she's obviously pleased about that. But I'm very pleased to say that we've appointed Liz Kane as the new head of school operations in SBS, and she'll be starting on the 22nd of February. We've appointed Maria Camper as the new director of the BSF, and she will start on the 1st of March, and Jenny Stewart as the new head of communications and marketing. And she is starting on the 1st of February. So I know people will join me in welcoming those new colleagues to the team. So some new people starting in the new year, which are very exciting. And the other thing I just wanted to mention very quickly is the nominations are still open for the Distinguished Achievement Awards and also for the Making a Difference Awards. I'm kind of feeling slightly in two minds about this, because everyone's been doing such a fantastic job that everyone's made a difference and everyone's kind of had distinguished achievement. But if there are people that you really feel you would like to nominate, or teams for any of those awards, that would be great. But as I said in my update at the beginning of the week, you know, we don't have to wait for an award to say thank you to people for doing a fantastic job. So that's just something for people to think about. The other thing just wanted to update you on briefly before we get into the wellbeing session is the technical services review that we're undertaking in the faculty. David Patwell, our HOSO in medical sciences, is leading that. So he's going to just give everybody a quick update on where we're at with the technical services review. David.
Thanks, Vicky, and thanks, Ian, for giving us a couple of minutes this afternoon. I've got some slides, but I won't keep us too long because I know we want to get onto the wellbeing sessions. So I'm just going to flick through these once I have it in the right format. So the technical review, we mobilised back in July time, and we just wanted to have a look at technical services, which hadn't been looked at since the creation of the faculty back in 2016. So we're aware that there was some issues there, and we wanted to have a look at how we might evolve technical services. So really the aims of the review are around kind of raising the levels of expectation, so the expectation of staff working within those technical services, and raising the levels of expectation of what our academic colleagues can expect from our technical services colleagues as well. And it's about building partnerships between academics and our PS colleagues, those that work in technical services, and making it better for both sets of colleagues, and that we work in partnership together to achieve the strategic aims of both the faculty and the university. So that's the main aim of the technical review. We've divided the review into three main sections. One is around human resources, so looking at things like job descriptions, are they fit for purpose, what kind of staff we have, what's our age profile, what are those skill sets that we have, where are the gaps that we might identify that we need to raise or fill in some of those gaps. We want to look at that organisation and structure, so how we organise our staff, how staff are developed, how they're trained, how we can promote opportunities to staff, and deploy our staff in flexible ways, and the means and the structures to do that within any new structure that we come up with. And the third is to look at finance. So we know there's a problem with cost recovery in some of our grants, and it does leave us with a financial hole sometimes in costing some of our technical services staff on research contracts. So we want to look at that and make sure that we're financially sustainable for our technical services model as well. There's a couple of different milestones then that we set out. The first was the establishment of the group, and then there's 5 separate phases that we divided the project into. So we're in phase 1 at the moment, which is what I call the discovery phase. There's a lot of data gathering, consultation with our review group and with individual stakeholders. After that, there's a kind of consolidation phase, which is examining the evidence and the thoughts and the consultation data that we've got back from members of staff. We'll look at those job descriptions, and then we'll move on to developing models and testing that hypothesis out with our consultation group again, and wider members of the academic and PS communities. And then the final phase will be a final written document, which will be presented to FLT with a number of recommendations, hopefully, about how we can improve services across the piece. And after that, there will be obviously an implementation phase. This won't stop. We won't be able to get everything done within the year period, and there'll be a number of small task and finish groups set up after the main project has been finished. I should add as well that we're working in conjunction with science and engineering, who are also doing a technical review and looking at areas where we can work together and kind of have some cross-fertilization across the pieces. So that might be around best practice in health and safety, or we might be looking at sharing information and practice around some of our core facilities as well. So I'm working closely with colleagues in FSC around what they're doing with their review. Just in terms of membership, so there's 2 groups. There's the technical services review group, which you've heard I'm the chair. And on that group at the moment, there's Peter Crowe, who's head of technical services, Sharon and Alison, who are respective HOSOs in SHS and SBS, Fiona Cause, our HR business partner, Andy from Finance, Becca Darlington, who gives our admin support, and Kath and Stephanie, who are our project and comms manager, and Vicky is the project sponsor. And then our technical services review group, who are a set of academics and PS colleagues that we've drawn together, who are kind of our eyes and ears and our sounding board, and people that we can consult with and test some ideas out with and get some feedback from initially. You can see the people listed here. So they're gathered from across the schools and across main areas of our communities across the faculty. And the governance, just to mention as well, is just through ourselves as from FLT down through the technical services review group, technical review group and the technical review reference group, and onto the respective areas that they're representative of. So far we have managed to get through a lot of work. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but you mightn't have heard a lot from us, but we've been doing a lot of data gathering in the background, initial consultations with our reference group, and some individual consultations with members of staff as well. After Christmas, we hope to have a new communication plan in place. We hope to set up a website. We'll have some frequently asked questions on there. A recent finance presentation that Andy did to our academic community we make available as well around research cost recovery. But the last activity we're doing before Christmas is we just launched a survey, and there's two parts to this. One's for our academic colleagues and one's for our PS colleagues. And we'd encourage people to fill out these surveys, give us some more information about what your thoughts, feelings are around technical services at the moment and how we can improve that. Or indeed, if things are really going well, tell us about that as well. So that's where we're up to at the moment. Sorry, that's been very, very quick. But obviously, if you've got any questions for me, please do contact me, or if we've got time at the end, I'll answer some questions quickly as well. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David. So I'm just wondering whether there's any quick questions around any of those things. I appreciate that's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour through various kind of key areas, really. No? Okay, right. Now we're on to the exciting bit. We've got two breakout rooms. The first, room 1, wellbeing in winter, Gemma is going to lead, and room 2, around the Compassionate Colleagues scheme, Jane Crosby is going to lead. So what I'm hoping is that by the magic of Zoom, you'll get a little box on the screen which will let you choose which room you want to join. And we've got probably about 30 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then we'll come back together. And as I said earlier, if people can think about any personal top tips that they might like to share about wellbeing to feedback, if we've got time at the end, that would be great. So fingers crossed. I'm hoping this all works.
See you in a room.
I think everyone should have got the message now, because people are starting to assign themselves.
Right.
So.
Where did it, Ian? Where should we have seen something there, Ian?
I think so, yes.
Oh, I can't see anything. Let me just.
I can't see anything.
No, neither can I.
Well, people are assigning themselves to the rooms.
There we are.
How are they doing that then?
No, I've not had anything.
Heather,
yeah.
If you look at the bottom, there's 4 squares that say breakout rooms.
At the bottom,
then you can pick which breakout room you want to go on.
I can't see. Is that, I'm on an iPad? Does that make any difference, Simon?
Oh, probably.
On mine
there'll be a button that says breakout rooms.
I'm looking.
It's at the top of the screen on mine.
Oh.
It's like 4 squares.
No.
Oh.
Breakout room.
Hey, yay!
Where'd you find it, Heather?
It's on the left-hand side. You know where you've got the gallery view and those little icons.
Oh yeah.
And it's 4 squares. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Results. Thanks, Heather.
I'm enjoying this. It's quite entertaining.
Vicky, I've got a meeting at 2:30, so I'll have to drop off now.
Okay. Yeah. No problem, Simon.
Sorry, I'm struggling too. I can see the 4 squares and I can see who's in the breakout rooms, but I can't see how to join it.
I can't see any squares.
I'm the same. I can see the rooms and who's in them, but no way to join them.
Are you on a Mac by any chance?
I'm on a Mac.
I don't know if that's...
I'm on a Mac too, yeah.
Oh my, I'm having the same.
I think I can assign you. Which room would you like to go to?
I'm going compassionate colleagues, please.
Who is that?
That's Laura Mackay.
And I'll go with Gemma, please, Siobhan.
Hang on, I can't find you on this list, Laura.
Here, I can see her.
I can see, but I can't see you on the list.
Oh.
And I can't see you, Siobhan, either.
Can you see me, Ian, Anne-Marie?
You're secretly not really here. You're stalking us like secret people.
It's a familiar feeling.
No, I can't see Anne-Marie either.
Oh, we'll have our own little breakout room here.
Sorry, Siobhan, which one did you want to go to?
Gemma, please.
To wellbeing
and wellbeing and Winter.
Assigned to wellbeing and Winter.
Thank you.
Laura wanted to go to
compassionate colleagues, please.
Colleagues. Anne-Marie wanted
Thank you.
To...
I'll go to Gemma Dale as well, wellbeing, please.
So we've just got Vicky and Terry helping unassigned.
Well, we got there. We got there in the
end.
We got there in the end.
Do you want to go to a room or not?
Oh,
as a co-host, you should be able to move between.
I know, but I think it's because I'm on a Mac.
No, I'm on a Mac as well. It should be better.
Well, and it normally is, clearly, but it won't. I'm not sure it'll let me.
Do you want me to assign you to one, or?
Yeah, go on. Assign me to Gemma, because I can do the other one whenever.
There we go.
Thank you. See you in a bit. I hope I can get back now.
I think so. So half an hour.
Around well-being is taking that moment to recognise where you are now. And it's very hard to think while I'm talking. So I'm simply going to pause for a second and I'm going to ask you this question, and I will just leave a moment of silence while you just perhaps answer the question for yourself, which is, how are you today? It's horrible, that silence on a Zoom, isn't it? I won't let it hold for too long. But a good question, a good reminder that we do need to check in with ourselves and our own sense of how we are on a regular basis. That question is one I use in my coaching all the time. I used to say, how are you? But of course, most of us are British, and we know that there are only really two acceptable answers to that. The first is, of course, I'm fine. And the second, of course, is I'm busy. Followed by, perhaps if we've been on annual leave, some suggestions about how full our inboxes were on our return. This question comes from a book on resilience called Option B. It's written by Sheryl Sandberg. It's a really interesting book. Many of you will know Sheryl Sandberg. She wrote Lean In. She's the COO of Facebook, but she wrote a book about resilience after experiencing a bereavement. It's a very interesting read. And she said she could never cope with the question after a bereavement, how are you? Because it was too big. But how are you today is a much better question. And it recognises the fluctuations in feeling that so many of us currently have. When I was preparing for this webinar, I checked in with myself, and this is about how I felt when I was writing it. It's dreadful, isn't it? I shouldn't say that. But this is what lots of people are saying to me. They're saying to me, frankly, Jem, I'm knackered. And forgive the language. And you know, the one thing I am very cognizant of during this time is burnout. And I don't mean burnout in the way that we sometimes use that word, which is I'm just super tired. But burnout in its real sense, in its occupational disease sense, means that we've lived, you know, it is the physical and mental reaction to living through extreme and long-term stress, something that our bodies are not designed to do. So not everybody's feeling negative wellbeing implications from working from home all this time. Lots of people on the flip side have said to me, I've got more time for exercise. My energy sapping and draining and expensive commute isn't happening, because we know in Manchester we've got two of the worst performing train stations in the country. Anybody that follows me on Twitter will know I used to spend a lot of time complaining about the trains into Manchester and my commute home, in which I was very often far too close to the armpits of complete strangers. So we are seeing some people having wellbeing benefits at this time. But frankly, if you're feeling a little bit like this, then I think that's a little bit possibly how we all are. So my intention today is hopefully to give you that little bit of a reminder about what's good for wellbeing. And as I said right at the start of this session, very often this stuff isn't a knowledge gap. It's a doing gap, because we know some of this stuff, and I'm going to double check in a minute you know some of this stuff, but we don't always do it. So what do we know is good for well-being? Okay, first of all, we know that good for well-being is connecting with other people. Much more difficult this year, and we're doing it most of the time through screens, which sometimes feels, I know, like a poor substitute. I don't know about you, I keep getting invited to quizzes and escape rooms and family things, and frankly after a full day on Zoom at work, it's the last thing I want to do. However, we also know the importance of connecting with other people. It's one of the evidence-based 5 ways to well-being, and a fundamental way that as human beings we connect with others. My bottom left picture there is representing learning. Again, all sorts of evidence that suggests that when we learn some new stuff, it gives us a sense of pride, accomplishment, and can really give ourselves a confidence boost, and all of these things good for well-being. Of course, there's a flip side at the moment, because you remember all that stuff that came out at the start of the pandemic, like this is the time to learn the guitar, and that's third language you've always wanted to do, and don't forget to bake your banana bread. So of course, in the current context, it's learn if it's going to help you. Like with all well-being stuff, it's one size fits one. There'll be some things on here, on this list, that will work for you, and there'll be things that will not. What works for my well-being and enables it, and what detracts from it, will be different to every single of the 57 people on this call. My top one is about the reminder of actually taking a pause and a breath. Holidays are important, I'll come on to that. But actually sometimes it's that more deliberate relaxation that comes from meditation and mindfulness. Doing guided meditations can be astonishingly good for reducing our stress and anxiety, for helping us wind down at the end of a complicated and difficult day. Sometimes people say to me, Jem, I haven't got time to meditate or do mindfulness. And I believe the appropriate answer to that is, when you don't have time, that's when you need it the most. My other answer to that is always, there is always time for 5 very deep and slow breaths. One of the other things that we know, and that's my bottom right picture, that is really good for all of us is to take some time. I'm talking here from the field of positive psychology. Great book if you're interested in that is Flourish by Martin Seligman. He's the father of positive psychology. But this idea that if we spend some time deliberately tuning into and focusing on what we are grateful for, then this also has a well-being boost. And similarly, a huge well-being boost for the people when we tell them that we appreciate them too. Next week or the end of this week, we're going to do a big reminder on the online thank you card scheme, and we're going to be encouraging people to do exactly that, to tune in and to say thank you to people, but also to remember what we're really, really grateful for, the things that we will want to do again after the end of all of this, and those things that are still positive and we can be grateful for. Now, coming up on my next slide is that I'm going to test this thing now around the kind of knowledge gap on these two sides. So do feel free to use the chat box when I get to these relevant questions, because I'm figuring you all know a lot of this stuff already. But I'm going to start with my the picture of somebody's feet in bed. As having really good sleep is fundamental to both physical and mental well-being. Having a sleep routine, it's something lots of people have struggled with during this time, but it is absolutely fundamental and one of the most important things in the overall way that we recover from work, and especially the way that we recover from work that is mentally challenging. If anybody is really struggling with sleep, there's a great, it's quite a long one, there's an hour-long sleep lecture on the staff wellbeing pages, which is all about how to get a really good sleep routine. It was filmed a couple of years ago. But still a really useful thing to look at. Okay, so I'm checking you're still listening to me now. Please, somebody, I'm going to assume you know what amounts to a nutritious diet and what doesn't, and you can tell the difference between a sausage roll and a trifle. What is the, just to test that rationale, can somebody tell me how much fruit and veg are you supposed to eat every day? Please do use the chat box. While you're at it, I'll come on to my next question. How many steps are you supposed to do a day? Okay, so I've got 5, 7, 5 to 8. Yes. Now, the government says 5, but that is an absolute minimum. Really, they're kind of saying more like 7 to 10 would be ideal, and much more about veg, by the way, than fruit, because it's got less sugar, which is, you know, it's always the things we like to eat less. So, nutritious diet, overall good for physical and mental health. The steps thing, most people are coming in at about 10,000. Don't know whether you know, entirely made up statistic by a Japanese marketing company. It isn't particularly evidence-based. However, it does give you about 5k a day-ish, maybe, depending on your stride. The one things that we do know is that physical exercise is fundamental to well-being, to physical and mental health, and is also one of the things when we come on to talk about recovery from work, is also one of the things that is fundamental to recovering from a challenging working day. My clock represents taking a break. Again, you know, I don't need to tell all of you this. Most people know that taking a break is fundamental. So whether that's taking regular breaks from work, or indeed whether that means taking things like your annual leave. If I come on to my next slide, does anybody know, use the chat box again, what the research suggests is a good time to spend in nature a week if you want to get a really good wellbeing burst? Tell me in a number of hours if you want to hazard a guess to improve your physical, to improve your mental health and your sense of well-being. Yeah, first person in has got it. I'll bang on 2 hours a day. Sorry, 2 hours a week. If you can spend 2 hours a week outside in nature, proven to give you a really good wellbeing burst. If anybody wants any of the research, by the way, that sits on the back of this, let me know. What about the hydration thing? I've got water in there, also fundamental to well-being and good cognition. Anybody got any idea of number of glasses a day? At least 2 litres. Yeah, 8 glasses, 2 litres. Those are the usual suggestions. There's a bit of a difference in thought really about what counts as fluid. Some people will say it's got to be water. Other people will say other things count. I'm always quite relaxed about this. Obviously, things like coffee and energy drinks, yeah, they're not really counting to your good fluid intake. And I say that as a complete coffee addict. Anybody know, by the way, if you're a coffee addict, what the cut-off time of day is that you should stop drinking coffee if you want a decent night's sleep? Anybody want to hazard that guess? See if anybody's got any thoughts on that one. midday, 6 p.m. 3, 4. Lisa is right. Leslie is right. Kath is right. I mean, it's not a perfect science, but coffee can have like a life in your body for 8 to 10 hours. So if you're drinking anything that's very caffeine dense after about 2 p.m, there's a chance it might still impact with your overall sleep. So probably try and keep it to the morning, I would suggest. Or as Maria says, don't drink it at all. That's not happening. That's just not happening. The bottom one is about hobbies. So again, we know that when we connect with the things that we really love and we're passionate about, it is an escape. It is an escape from all of the other demands, and people that kind of prioritize that, good psychological wellness. A couple of other things. My lovely big long fence at the bottom represents boundaries. I'm going to start running a new workshop in the new year about managing work-life balance effectively, because that seems to be a real big challenge for people right now. You know, because, you know, boundaries, or we used to have boundaries, didn't we? It was called the commute. You know, we used to have that transition time, that time to kind of set down work and switch off from our work selves to our home selves. Now my transition from work to home is I'll flip this screen and I'll move like about 3 feet in that direction, because I'm talking to you from my living room. I'm sure lots of you are also in similar situations. So one of the things we can do is have really good boundaries between work and home for our well-being. When we've got good boundary management between work and home, and we've put the right things in place around that, again, good for well-being and psychological health and energy. So having some rituals like, you know, I'm going to have a time that I stop working every day and I don't work beyond that. I'm going to have times in the weekend where I do not check my emails no matter what. Or at the end of the day, I'm going to actually put everything away that is related to my working day, even if that means you have to put them in a box and shove it out of sight or under the bed. Creating a space between work and home is very important right now. So is saying no. There's an old saying, I don't know how true it is or evidence-based it is, but things take 3 times in general longer than you expect them to do. Lots of people who are people pleasers say yes to everything. You may recognize that in yourself. It's 2 phrases that I often come up in wellbeing coaching. The first is don't set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. The second one is no is a complete sentence. So sometimes the only thing we can do around to manage our workloads and manage our work-life balance and in consequence our well-being is to say no and without guilt. And then my charger is about recovery. So making sure that we take the time to deliberately recover from work. And some of the things I've talked about contribute to that. Breaks, boundaries, being outside, doing exercise, all of those things contribute to recovery from work. I'm getting to the end of my session now, but I want to leave you with 3 quotes. 2 of them I'm sure you will know. The third one you might not, unless you've been on one of my previous sessions. And then I have some reflections, not for this session, but things that you might want to think about afterwards. And we can make these slides available, or feel free to just snap them with your phone when I get to them. So here's my 3 quotes. You've heard this one, I'm sure, especially if you've been on any resilience training. This is a very tough time. And if you're not feeling okay, that's fine.
So how you can help as a compassionate colleague. Ian, have we got 5 minutes or longer?
Yeah, five minutes. How long are you going to be?
I'll just run through these and then see what, we just wanted to have a little quick discussion. So yeah, we'll be 5 minutes.
They're nearly finished in the other room, that's all.
Okay. So yeah, you can be a compassionate colleague by being aware of mental health. So like I mentioned before about Mind Charity and kind of being aware of actual disorders and just kind of knowing exactly what they might be. So asking people if they are okay, please don't feel afraid to do this. You could really change someone's day or life. So please do this. You can also really listen to others. I think listening is a very powerful tool. So make sure you really listen when people are kind of disclosing their thoughts and feelings. Signposting sources of support. So there's lots available at the university and Mind Charity, and encourage people to get help. Finally, definitely keep it confidential. This is something that people, would need to trust to be open. That's really important. So here are some tips of having the actual conversation. I'll skip through these, but we'll send the resources after. But basically, some of these will relate to whether it's your
Has Gemma finished her session? Okay.
I have in the room.
Back in the room.
They're just finishing off in Jane's session.
Okay, well, we'll wait for them to come back. In the meantime, if anybody does want to share any top tips in the chat, that would be great. Anything you find that has worked for you, or any thoughts from what Gemma was talking about? Thanks, Siobhan.
I'll just send them a message now.
Have they got a point at which, Ian, that you just chop them off and they come back?
Yes, I could do that. That's a bit mean, though, isn't it?
It is. If it's ahead of time, then yeah, you'll be in trouble. Some of us, this is Heather here, some of us were struggling to escape from the room, but eventually we found out how to do it. But there were, I think, a few stragglers left.
You're doing a great job, Ian.
Well, it's a bit of an experiment, this. It's going to be even more of an experiment on Thursday at the Leadership Forum. I've got 3 rooms.
Right.
But anyway, seems to have worked okay. I'm going to close the other room now and bring them back in.
Look at all these new skills we've learned, you see, in the last 8 months.
Absolutely.
Is it good for our well-being, though? Or does it just make us more frazzled?
Well, technically, the theory said that learning new stuff, there is evidence to suggest that it's really good for your self-confidence and your sense of self-accomplishment. So,
right.
You might not feel like that right now.
I'm going to close the room now, so they should come back in. We'll close in 60 seconds. So let's count them down.
Think of the power that you've got, Ian.
What, moving people from one room to another?
No, kicking them out. Yeah, kicking them out of a room.
Yeah, exactly. Kick them out. You can mute them. You can do whatever you like.
Yeah,
or you can do what my daughter does when she's been on Zoom, which is to put all the little special effects on. So you've got a little like green moustache and stuff, and then I have no idea how to get rid of it. And I turn up in a 9 o'clock meeting and go, hello. And I'm thinking, oh God. Well, it takes me about 10 minutes to work out how on earth she's done it, because she's 9 and she's a digital native and she gets it, and I haven't got the first clue.
Right, we're counting down now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we are. She'll be back
in the room.
Back in the room.
We needed more time.
I know. I'm sorry, Jane. We were kind of, well,
it's fine, it's fine. I might do another session. I'll do it as part of the PS network. So if people want another session, I'm happy to run through and do maybe like an hour, because we can all help each other.
Brilliant. That'd be great. I think lots of people nodding there, Jane. I think you've got yourself a deal there. That'd be great.
I'll do it early Jan. Yeah.
Brilliant. That'd be great. Okay. So we've just got a couple of minutes. I asked our group, Gemma's group, came back a little bit earlier, and I asked people to start speaking in the chat kind of things about top tips. And there's a couple in here. So Siobhan says comedy is the way to get you through. Important point from Heather about keeping things in perspective. And Helen saying learn to say no. Yes, someone needs to teach me that one as well, I think. I think a lot of us have a challenge with that one. So I mean, just if anyone's got any kind of reflections that they'd like to share, please put them in the chat. That would be really helpful. I'm just going to kind of pick out a few if people want to put stuff. I think what's really important for me and what I've taken from this is just that it is a very personal thing. You know, one of the things that Gemma said was, you know, it's okay not to feel okay today, or, you know, and maybe you might be okay again tomorrow. And I think that's really important, kind of recognizing how you feel at a particular time, and being kind of, you know, honest, and that's okay. And I one of the things that I feel we've been a lot more, I certainly feel that I and the people that I work most closely with have been more open about, is that this last, I can't remember how many months it is now, but since we went into the first lockdown has really made us kind of, I think we do take the time to just check in on each other much more, and I think that's a really good thing. And it is a really personal thing as well, you know, and some people are very personal and some people are more happy to share, and that's fine too. You know, I think it's everyone's to their own kind of things, and to do the things that help for you. Let you into a little secret. The thing that I do is I go, and I've for some years now, I've gone to a kind of well, it used to be called Zumba, now it's called Dance Fit, but it's the same thing. It's dancing around like an idiot to crap songs, and generally making a fool of yourself and laughing with lots of other women in the 40s. And since lockdown, and we've been able to do that outside, I've been doing that outside. So last night at 7:30, I was dancing around like an idiot on a school playing field, laughing my head off, and it was absolutely brilliant, and that has kept me sane. And I think it's about finding your thing and finding the time, and making sure you do take that time for yourself, and you know, and making sure that you have that time to. Somebody asked me the other day if I was still sane, and I said, well, that assumes you think I was sane to start with. But you know, it's about each of us doing what's right, and you know, to everybody I'd say, you know, find that time for yourself, because it is really, really important. I know sometimes it's difficult, but if we can all do that, I think that will really help. And Gemma's been doing Zumba as well. Yeah, you see, the other things, if I did it in my kitchen, I'd have to sing, and then the whole family would disown me forever. So James saying yoga, speaking, meeting friends, family, laughing, music, dancing, being really kind. Yeah. So I think, you know, Rome's saying develop boundaries for yourself regularly. Really, really important things that people are saying here. So thank you everybody for all of that. Sammy saying, might not always be possible, but taking tiny steps towards achieving something, doing good in the community. Again, another fantastic suggestion, volunteering, and obviously through the university we've also got opportunities of volunteering if that's something you'd like to do, or as you say, in your own community. Great ideas there. And I know, you know, the university's got lots of ways of supporting people. I've found out loads of amazing things that I never knew happened around where I live on Twitter and Facebook, you know, and Instagram. You know, there's loads of things out there, things for people to do. So I hope people have found that useful. Jane, you want to just jump in?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention it in my talk, but obviously support comes from the university as a whole or your line manager, but equally yourself, it's your responsibility, you know, to make yourself happy in certain ways. So just remember that.
Absolutely. That's a great point to finish on. So I think I'm going to let everybody go and get a couple of minutes breather if you've got something on at 3. So I'd just like to say thank you particularly to Jane and to Gemma for doing their breakout sessions. Really helpful, really inspiring. Thank you so much. And I know Gemma's got to dash, so thank you to Gemma. But just say to everybody, feedback would be great, be really helpful. Let us know whether you thought this was helpful or not. And have a lovely Christmas, everybody, if I don't see you. And get some downtime. Think about your well-being, support yourselves, support each other. Have a lovely Christmas and New Year. And I will see everybody in January. Thank you all very much.